Then would be adoption of the agenda.
Move. Second.
Adoption, all in favor? Motion's carried. No delegations this evening. We do have the minutes of the August 19th council meeting for approval.
Move.
Second.
Approval, all in favor? Motion's carried. Management report for receipt.
Move receipt. Second.
And receive them, all in favor? Motion's carried. Any questions arising out of that? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have a report from staff on the proposed homelessness service. So we'll receive that and then have some discussion.
Move receipt. Second.
Receive that, all in favor? Motion's carried. All right, CAO, you wrote this report here.
You touched that.
Yeah. No, I tried to touch on all the issues that were raised during the discussion from the last council meeting, and to clarify with regional district staff the notion of participating in the service. And again, the regional district is sticking to the legislation, which, if we are to be a participant, there are specific requirements to meet and become a full participant. And so I tried to separate out what council's position is as current, which is to contribute towards the service of homelessness should that be established in the other areas. A few pros and cons, otherwise can try and answer any questions that members of council may have.
All right. We also have directors of the regional district, which I understand discussed this last week, and the final decision on that has been held to the end of this month. Our decision.
That's good. Now, in fairness, though, I did tell them that our meeting was on the 16th.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that's
You
why
can still
they.
be discussing.
Well, yeah, that's right. But that's why they put it off in one week.
Yeah. Any questions, comments, Councilor Price?
I just had a couple of questions. If we did decide to join later, I assume we'd have to go with a referendum, given the valley-wide movement to go with the referendum. And do you know who would pay for that? Who would that?
I believe we would if we choose to go the route of a referendum at a later date for Comox only. However, council could choose to look at just an alternative assent process rather than a full referendum for joining that service. So both those options exist.
Okay. And with the maximum requisition, so the 40,000 plus that you note in here, this would be the maximum requisition going with the formula that's proposed for the service. Yeah, so it's probably unlikely that we would requisition to the maximum, because generally it's somewhere between.
Correct. I think right now we're at about 36,000 is what staff of the regional district estimated. Between 33 and 36 is what our relative share would be of the. It's on top of the 165 that the maximum the bylaw allows. So that is for the areas that are looking at participating, plus whatever Comox will contribute on top of that.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes, I'm wondering if at this time we might be able to consider taking a step back and consider looking at joining the service for a period of time and then reviewing it after a time period. Then, if council's not comfortable with the progress towards the Homeless Coalition plan, that we could consider reverting to a contractual system if so desired. And I can speak to that if you like. But I think there would be value in that, and that the service be logged in with Comox as well, so it's a full Comox Valley service to start with, to give this group a chance to put into place their plan.
The downside of that is that once you're in the service, then there's a process to get withdrawn from the service, as we have seen in the past. Once you're in it, it is somewhat difficult to get out. There's a whole process that ensues.
the province gets involved and
Yes. And for example, with economic development, going through that, Cumberland's request would involve and the difficulties in that, and of course, previous efforts by Harmony Denman Island to get out of the sports and aquatic centers. So once you're in a functioning regional district, opting out is a little more difficult. It's easier to opt in than out.
well, and you don't really get all the way out, do you? I mean, you still have to pay, like Harmony and Denman are still paying.
That would be subject to the terms of
But
negotiation.
there's a negotiation that goes on.
I appreciate that. I just think there's been an unprecedented chain of events that's happened with the coalition coming together and professionals working together in this coalition, coming up with a 1 to 5 year plan or objectives. And that's exactly what the public wanted to see, is that they wanted to see not more studies and not another layer of local government, and they wanted to see sort of outcomes set on paper like this. And I think it's worth looking at going to the public with the referendum as a whole Comox Valley, so that to give this group a chance to put their plan in place.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Arnott, thanks.
Okay, a couple questions. So if we were to vote and bring Comox residents into a referendum, is it a majority that wins, or does each community, for example, does Comox have to have 50% plus one to go in there? If Comox residents said only 30% said that they would go in there, but a huge majority of Courtney folks went in, and they have more people, does that mean we're pulled in with that, or are we each group on our own?
Very good question. Staff?
Each jurisdiction on its own is basically, the results from each one determine whether that jurisdiction will be participating in the service.
Okay. So the other question, just doing some research on referendums, that in Ontario, more than 50% of the public must participate in a referendum for its results to be binding. Is there anything like that in British Columbia? So if only 30% of people go and they vote this in, then everybody's bound by it.
That's my understanding,
Okay. Sorry, one more. So the five-year action plan is not, because I was under the, I guess I had this in my mind, after 5 years, we get to revisit this. That's not the case. The action plan is revisited, but not our participation in it.
Yeah, I think the function would continue until such time as the function ceases to exist.
Right.
It would require everybody participating to say they put it down.
Yeah.
But the coalition's work has a 5-year plan, and a service review would be conducted every 5 years, which is what we've done here tonight.
Right.
So you look at the service and decide what it's still needs, and then somebody might not like it, for example, maybe us or Cumberland or whoever, and they say, well, we want out, and then there's a process to do.
Okay. Thank you.
I just had, well, I had some questions and maybe some comments. I was looking at page 30 on the report, and it was talking about the ways that funds could be raised by way of agreement, enterprises, gifts, or grants. In my understanding was if we didn't participate in the service, we had to deal directly with whoever was going to provide the service rather than contribute to the service.
I believe that's the case, yes.
So,
Yes.
but that's not what that says, isn't it?
Maybe we just make sure we're on the same paragraph. or
Page
Are we
30,
on?
under service establishment bylaw.
Okay, right.
About halfway through the
So you're saying further, the only ways in which funds can be raised for the service are through property value taxes and revenues received by the agreement, enterprises, gifts, or grants, or means authorized by the local government. Well, I guess somebody could make a donation to the service. Grants could be provided by other levels of government, perhaps by way of contract.
But my question is, why can we grant? Rather than,
Why, sorry?
why couldn't
Why
town
couldn't-
Comox provide a grant rather than have to?
Well, that's, I think, the point that our staff would be making. And we've done that in other services like pesticide grants and
That's right.
victim services and so on. So I think because it's a flow-through, the nature of the service being proposed is a flow-through, maybe that causes the issue at the regional district. There's supposed to be no administrative cost at the regional district, and the money's flowed through directly to the coalition or the service provider, who may have their own administrative costs, but this is the regional district, this money raised, passed through.
But having said that, the regional district staff have been pretty clear that there will be some administration cost, but it will be kept to the manager. So again, there is a bit.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Be some bookkeeping, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy with the way we had already decided. I have some reservations about joining the service. I know the coalition has established a 5-year plan, but, you know, there's just all kinds of, that's the group, and they're a volunteer group, and they're there together now. We don't know what the future's going to hold, and I think as representing the people of Comox, I think we know that people want to support homelessness initiatives, and I'm more comfortable leaving us in a situation that we're not participating in the service, but we're contributing to the homelessness situation directly.
Thank you. Councillor Grant.
I see past councils as being very proactive in that they were able to take a leadership role in this decision long before it came to the table in the other municipalities. And I've read carefully and discussed this subject ad nauseam for the last 2 weeks, and see no reason to change my vote either.
Councillor Price.
Yes, so for getting into the discussing, and I do believe a strength of the regional district is our ability to work together by forming services, and we're, as you know, we're part of a wide range of services, rec services, transit, economic development, of which we, you know, would like to see Cumberland stay part of it. You know, from my point of view, I believe that we are stronger together when we work together as Comox Valley. Our resources are better used, and I personally believe that tackling homelessness is a service we would consider a Comox Valley-wide service. The services that we belong to through the regional district are Comox Valley-wide services, like ice arenas that individually we couldn't do effectively ourselves or fairly. And so I do believe that tackling homelessness is one of these Comox Valley-wide initiatives, and I'd certainly like to see Comox part of it. We did in our early motion, the motion that we did pass, we did agree to joining the service. We decided on a contractual basis, so which is not available, and I think you know, that's Richard has thoroughly explored it in the regional district, and that's not a route to go through. I think it is, as you explained, when we contract pesticide awareness, the regional district is delivering the services, so we are buying those services, but they are not providing the services in this case. So I think we have to revisit our original motion, because on the books we're actually saying that we wish to be part of this service. So we could either choose to change the original motion and say we don't want to be part of the service, or we can keep with the original motion and delete the part that says by contract and become full participants. And the value I see of becoming a full participant is, first of all, it minimizes confusion. I think I have concerns about the referendum for the rest of the Comox Valley, because people are going to be asking, why isn't Comox, and like 14,000 people, why aren't they part of it? And whenever you get confusion, it's a negative in the referendum, and it could, you know, could be the point that tips the balance whether the whole referendum passes or not. Also, by being a full participant, we can be part of reviewing the coalition's 5-year plan and voting on it, influencing it, and lastly, a service that doesn't include COMOX could be perceived by the federal and provincial government as not speaking with one voice. So I personally would like to, I don't think this is the appropriate time, but I would like to move that that COMOX support and participate in a new regional service, as we have already approved, to address homelessness, and then that we delete by contract out of the original motion and maybe add as a full participant. So that COMOX support and participate in a new regional service to address homelessness as a full participant.
And I assume that you, subject, of course, to the outcome of a referendum.
Yes. Yes, so we'd be part of that whole process, yes.
All right, is there a seconder for that?
I would second that, if we could add upon review after the initial term.
Can't do that.
Yeah,
There's a built-in
there's a built-in part.
review in the bylaws. It's currently worded by the regional district after 5 years.
That's a risk. All right, so that's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
So I think this whole notion that COMOX isn't in is simply semantics. I think that when you pay, you're in. We're standing here saying we're willing to pay, and we will be in. I think that if you want to get your message out for the referendum, it's a real simple message. All the communities are in. COMOX is paying by contract. That's it. Solves the referendum question. Our public doesn't need to pay for a referendum that we already know the outcome to. We already had one. So I think that if you're looking at what's best for the citizens of our community, with a coalition that's brand new, that has done great work, I'll grant them that, but we don't really know where this is going to go or where it's going to head. There's issues at the regional board with, we don't have a whole lot of power down there, there's 2. So we could get on the wrong end of a lot of votes on a service like this if we're not careful. I think taking a bit of a wait-and-see attitude and just making sure that it works, paying in the way we're saying, I think is clearly the best thing for the taxpayers of our town at this point. So I would not support the motion. I support what the coalition is trying to do. I think we're on the right track with the way we're trying to do it, and I think it's clearly in the best interest of our taxpayers to do it that way.
Any further discussion?
So would we be able to, if we went to referendum, would we be able to, as a town of Comox, put a caveat in there that we agreed to this, residents who voted in, but that we want to be able to evaluate it in 3 or 5 years? Now, I understand from the Local Government Act that right now you can't, but can we put that in? And so that way, if, as Councillor Grant's saying, it's a great thing, but it's a new group putting it together, and if it kind of implodes, then we can pull out of there, not that the money continues to go in without it being managed effectively.
I think the referendum question has to be pretty succinct. Basically, I think that's on page
Yeah, the referendum
29.
is already, yeah, it's already
29, there's a synopsis of it, and then the question is very distinct. Are you in favor of adopting this bylaw, which would establish a service to provide funds to one of our local non-government organizations based on the board-approved 5-year action plan to address homelessness? So to start putting qualifiers on that is going to perhaps, as Councilor Price said, confuse the issue a little bit. And I guess if you're willing to put that to the public, you'd say, look, there's a 5-year plan and there's a 5-year service review. We're into it for 5 years or something. I mean, you can, in the interim, if issues go sideways, you can initiate service reviews in another way, but in all likelihood, it should be set with 5 years.
and it just cost all of
And
that.
there's cost. Yes.
Well, I think the way we have the most control over the review and input, we still would have input, is to keep it here at our table. And if we keep it here at our table, we can, I understand the coalition's concern about planning and concern about, for how long and how much. But I think to be cautious that we should leave it here at our table and see how it goes. We can join later, at a later date. I'm also a little concerned because Comox is not identified as one of the areas that's going to is not within their boundaries.
Within the 5-year planning, or?
Well, in the bylaw, 389, page 34, City of Courtney, Village of Cumberland, electoral A.
Oh, and that's because
They're trying to vote earlier.
Oh, that's for the vote,
Yeah.
but not for the services, right?
yeah, it would be if we did want to participate.
Yeah.
If we were saying go to referendum, then that bylaw would include us.
Yeah.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, so is this boundaries just for the voting on the bylaw?
Yes.
Not for where services would be provided?
The boundaries of the service, oh, I see what you're saying. That's a good question. Boundaries and participating areas, I guess they have to be.
But this is limited to service participants, right? To those that are taking this matter to referendum, because we are at this stage participating by contract or whatever, contributing by contract. Sorry, I'm careful with my language. That's why Comox isn't mentioned.
I guess, but my question is, well, pick a service group. Let's say Habitat wanted to do something within Comox. Would they be ineligible to apply that funding for that project?
I don't know. That is a good question.
Well, it's no different than, say, sewer services, where it's Comox and Courtney's system, but we build stuff in the regional district. Right? That was the debate at the...
Councilor Kennedy.
I'll end with my passion statement is that I think we need to be bold, and I think other communities have taken bold steps to eradicate the homeless in their communities. But it was clearly shown to us in the non-binding referendum that the public is on side to do something here. And I think we should be bold and give them a time frame to put their plan into place and then review it then. So thank you for considering.
All right. Anything further, Councilor President?
Yes, and if I could just add, we don't know what the perfect answer is, and I think, we're all struggling with, where to go with this. It seems that what has happened in recent months and with the coalition getting together is a very exciting movement, and I think it's the first time that people are actually really closely working together and prioritizing and getting away from competing. And through this, and we have got a situation in any service, when you create it, there's always a birth as a service, and we've got a situation where we have actually Courtney, Cumberland, the three rural areas all going, okay, we'll give this a chance. And we aren't looking at solving homelessness or funding everything that will solve homelessness. This is seed money that we're looking at. We're looking at, an average, about $6 a year on an average home, and every dollar of taxpayers' money is really important. But we are looking at $6 a year. And if we find as a group that this isn't working, and that it, as somebody said, that it's imploding, we could decide that we only put $2,000 in. We don't have to requisition $180,000, which is what it would be.
That would be a decision of the whole group.
It would be a decision of the whole group. But if it's not working, then as a group, I think we go, oh, let's pull back and we just... So, we can work with the group. There's a certain level of trust in here. And, I'm willing to take that step and work as the Comox Valley and trust that the coalition have got their act together, and certainly their 5-year plan seems to speak to that. And this is seed money. This is, they'll have to look all over for grant money, and to us and to Courtney, and Angela pointed out that in Courtney they too put money into a fund for homelessness.
From their developer loans.
It was not from taxpayers. Okay. Yeah, he just brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I just think that it's, I'd like to be part of it, so I'm voting for my motion.
Any
And that's my final words, thank you.
further discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion? Those opposed? Motion is defeated. All right, so we'll move on, and unless there's any further discussion, essentially we've taken the position of the council that we'll see the course on contribution towards contract. We certainly wish the results of the referendum to be positive, and we'll continue to work with groups within our community and hopefully within the regional district as we move forward. Okay, so find the agenda here again. We have actually the regional district meeting minutes of August 25th.
Oh, move receipt.
Second.
Favor? Carried. And under new business, we have use of provincial fire response units. Staff are seeking authorization of the net revenues from the province for that recent fire response be spent on the fire equipment, particularly interface fire.
I'll move recommendation.
Second.
Okay, and our fire chief is here. I know this report was provided by the Director of Finance, but our fire chief's here. Do you have any further comments?
No, I think the report is pretty much self-explanatory. Happy to answer any questions.
I see that this kind of equipment was also being used in the interior resort as well.
Yeah, over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of this equipment developed around the province, somewhat limited on the island at this point still. Quite a bit used in the province last week now.
Councilor Rock.
Yeah. Would this have been equipment that was used on that fire around 7 times during the summer? I understand some four-wheel drive truck caught some wood on fire.
In that particular case, we would attack that fire with a traditional fire truck because we have street access and hydrants and things like that. But if that fire were to progress for days or hours or days, then this equipment would be put up to protect the structure. So typically, you put this particular equipment up and leave it, and the homes are protected while we're not there. Sort of thing. We currently have equipment to protect about 25 to 30 homes.
Any further discussion? Yes?
I'd just like to say kudos to our fire chief and our volunteer fire department that we have this ability and this ability to go out and help other communities. It's great.
Yeah, some of the pictures, I don't know if anyone saw them other than myself and CEO, but the photos of what they did out of it, sort of like well done to the fire chief and his crew. All right, all those in favor? Motion's carried. For the upcoming UBCM, the Municipal Insurance Association Annual General Meeting is being held, I think, at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, September 22nd. I won't be arriving at UBCM until later that night, so typically I've gone and represented the town for the AGM, which is always exciting. And we haven't yet won the draw, so maybe changing it up a bit. So one of you can have a chance of winning the draw, which typically is an iPad.
It's in camera.
An iPad.
Maybe you will win the iPad.
Yeah.
So we need to have that approved because Councillor Kingrad is the alternate currently using it. We could have the other two councillors appointed as alternates and they can arm wrestle for the state.
I'll move second.
Okay, all those in favor? Motion's carried. And the package, the voting package will be provided. Director of Finance will make sure you're able to get that. All right, correspondence. We have a letter from Rudy Prius.
Proceed.
Second.
On receipt then, all in favor? Any questions arising on that? Yes.
Is there, what he states in here about, safety and so on, is there actual rules in the BC Motor Vehicle Act or Highways Act that crosswalks must be of a certain color? I mean, we see these in different communities, so I'm sure that they are allowed, but, So just one of those things just kind of swept under the carpet.
No, the manual provides recommendations as to standards. You can choose to deviate somewhat from those standards, although if you are in a situation where you're going to court, it's always nice to be able to refer to something else to say, yes, we follow the standards.
All right, and then we also have a letter from Dr. Conradi regarding somewhat the same issue.
Move for receipt.
All right, I'll receive that. All's in favor? Motion's carried. I did meet with him prior to giving this letter, and I certainly was myself intrigued by his willingness to consider funding for it. At this juncture, subject to council's wishes in this regard, it may be prudent for this letter to be referred to staff, perhaps to meet with him and other components. See one of the Hoysets in the room here, who's a fellow who wrote this letter initially, and then see whether or not it's something can be accomplished. I think it's fair to say that we're somewhat reluctant to fund the project out of taxpayers' funds, given that it's a brand new crosswalk there. We've already spent money on, but if there's a way of perhaps doing some fundraising, as Wendell initially indicated, and of course Dr. Conradi seems to be offering, then perhaps staff can work with those two proponents, plus others that may be willing to contribute, either in kind or financially.
Did Dr. Conradi indicate how much he would be willing to donate? So just wondering how much pressure would be putting on Mr. Hoyseth and others to contribute?
No dollar amounts were discussed. He was aware generally of the staff report, which covered both installation and maintenance costs. As is typical, where organizations do contribute amenities, structures to the town, like Rotary and so on, typically they will be responsible for the installation costs, but not necessarily maintenance costs. The staff could discuss that with the proponents and see what's involved. Might be able to get the costs of installation to a certain level, and then maintenance might be something that the town would consider on an ongoing basis, as they do for any other infrastructure.
And could it be given, if it was given as a donation, could it be seen as tax receivable? Is that?
Director of Finance, is there?
If we receive cash, we can issue a receipt for the donation that's usable on either a corporate or a personal income tax return. Then makes the gift.
Great, great. Well, it's great letter. I mean, and a local business sees the value of it and wants to contribute. I think it's great. So, do you need a direction to staff? Or is
I think that's what we're looking for, but I'll let Councilman Kennedy get his hand up there for a second.
Just so we have the complete picture of cost, and I'm not sure we can get that now, but on a crosswalk of that nature, would there be upkeep costs down the road? I'd imagine so.
Of course. Yeah, with any crosswalk, you have to repaint and resurface.
Then that would have to be factored in too.
Yes.
And as a council, you have to make a decision whether we want that to be funded by taxpayers or...
I think we'd ask staff just to meet with the proponents and then come back to us with a proposal as to what it's going to cost. There's also other ways of doing, say, a rainbow crosswalk, which don't necessarily involve digging up what's there, but perhaps putting color in between the white panels and on and on goes. So there's different ways to do this. Other communities have done that in a different way. So staff can look at that and see what the cost associated with there. And then maintenance is something like we have to do with any crosswalk or street lines that are painted. Some street lines are painted almost every year, but whatever the maintenance would be required. Yes.
Yeah, and so with this crosswalk, which, first of all, I have no problem with, but could we choose a different sidewalk, or a different crosswalk than that one, since this one's just been freshly done? There's possibilities, and maybe that's something that staff can flesh out when they talk to the people involved, that, are we stuck with this one? Or,
I think Dr. Conradi, obviously his office is nearby this, but he also saw the benefit of having something colorful in that part of the downtown, as opposed to maybe some other part of town, but to be a welcoming addition to the downtown and the vibe that's been generated in that area. But it's possible one nearby could be considered as well. staff, I think, could flesh out with proponents. So I guess what we need is a motion.
Well, I think before we move on to
Yes.
this, I mean, to me, you know, the first letter here talks about the fact that crosswalks are for safety and therefore traffic flow. And I've never really seen them as something that's a message board. I mean, I think there's other ways to send messages. I think these ones in other communities, with all due respect, get a fair amount of vandalism, especially when they first get put in. So, you know, I heard in Vancouver they were throwing white paint on them and guys peeling up their cars all over them and stuff like that. So I think there's a higher maintenance repair cost for it. But to me, if you want to send a message, there's good ways to send messages out there. I think that when you take a crosswalk which is designed for safety and for pedestrian, that I don't know that that's where you want to be turning those into message boards. I've heard a lot of people in our community say, well, if you do this, then I'll take one, you know, and I'll put my message on it, right? And so, again, you get into that. And that's been overwhelmingly the response that I've heard from people in our community. So, you know, I just throw that out there. And, you know, I mean, perhaps we should be talking about whether we even want to do this before we talk about if we want to meet with them and whether we want to pay, how we want to pay. So,
well, I suspect that we wouldn't be necessarily deciding that we are doing it. We'd be seeing whether staff can come back to us with a proposal that makes some sense from perhaps those reasons, and financially, I think, is the other So it's certainly up to council to decide whether they want to pursue this any further at this juncture, or perhaps staff go with the components and come back to something that we can see whether or not that's what we would accept. We're not saying do it, we're saying work on a little bit more. There's some serious interest here, but beyond that, we can also say at this juncture, thanks for that. Well, Councilman McKinnon and yourself.
Yes, Your Worship. I certainly am in favor of diversity and acceptance, and regardless of race, creed, color, religion, or sexual orientation. But I'm more inclined to walk the talk rather than at taxpayers' expense paint the walk. I appreciate the gesture of the private person coming forward to pay for that, but I do have a question that taxpayers' dollars go to that. Again, I support events, weekly events that acknowledge groups that feel discriminated against to the nth degree. But I'm just wondering if this is appropriate tax dollars. If it's a donation, that's different. And that's why I asked in kind about the upkeep of crosswalk and whether that would be. Again, diversity, absolutely for our community, and acceptance. And we demonstrate that here at council meetings where people wear appropriate colors on certain weeks and walk the talk.
We will let you wear your kiltings.
but we don't need to see that again.
All right, well, if we ask staff, for example, to meet with the proponents, that would probably be one of the messages is we don't want this to cost taxpayer money or to whatever level the council feels comfortable with. You know, whatever is provided, if there is something provided, at some point would require maintenance. I mean, we're not going to expect somebody who's making a donation, make annual donations, to keep it up. So, you know, anytime somebody offers to build something in town, whether through service club or otherwise, there's going to be that aspect of it. But clearly, I think most people feel that it's probably not something, you know, we do spend a lot of money on our infrastructure. There's a nice crosswalk there now after many years. That's the key point. Whether we color it, rainbow it, whatever you want to call it, is another question, which is above and beyond really what municipal infrastructure is about. But if somebody's willing to do it at no cost to the taxpayers up front, then is that something we want to consider? And that doesn't have to be decided tonight, but it could be decided after, if staff are directed to meet with those proponents. So those are the options. We kind of need a direction when we wish to pursue it anymore.
Question. For example, through my Rotary Club, we have the Adopt a Highway program. So maybe this is something that staff, if we choose to have them discuss further, that the that Dr. Conradi's office would adopt this as something throughout the years that they put a line item in their budget and that they have to adopt it. Maybe we could talk to the Comox Grind, maybe we could talk to the folks in the new building at the Harbor Center. You know, that might be a nice way to continue the legacy of this.
Thank you for that suggestion.
I like that idea, but does it not open the door to Councillor Grant's concerns that where do you draw the line into somebody putting a message on? And again, I'm supportive of the diversity aspect here, but where do we draw the line on? And who does the vetting of the adopt a project?
Call Saul, ambulance station.
Yes, there's all sorts of possibilities.
Question that needs to be asked.
There's lots of causes, from things people wear around their wrists to colors of t-shirts to now crosswalks obviously have become popular, but I can't predict what will happen, and we have to deal with the here and now, I suppose.
Yeah, and we're not inventing the wheel. These are happening all over, and I love Dr. Conradi's letter because it's not just about reflecting diversity. Rainbows mean a lot to people in all different ways, and it's such a cheerful, colourful. So I certainly think it's a great idea, and I don't think we should be held hostage to vandals. I mean, I just noticed heritage boards up in the town circle have been vandalised with spray paint, and we will get on and clean it. They came through economic development, that project, and they're we maintain them, and we don't just go, take it down because it's vandalised. It's just, I can't, people are different, but I think we can't make that a reason not to. So I would like to make a direction to staff that staff meet with proponents or people who are willing to put money in and come back with a proposal.
All right. Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Staff, is that sufficient direction if that passes? Okay. Any further discussion on that motion?
We're not bound by anything to do with it. We're just
Staff will bring back a report.
information.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, yes, that report would be welcome.
Yes, once they met those ones. Okay, so we'll come back to council for sure. All those in favor? Those opposed? None opposed. So that passes. Thank you for your discussion, and staff will report back to us in due course. Last piece of correspondence is from Tracy Smith regarding homelessness coalition, and in that regard, so
Move receipt of that.
Second.
in favor? Motion's carried.
Yeah, really.
All right, so I believe that brings us to reports from members of council. So, Mr. Price.
Yes, as we mentioned, we attended a special restricted in-camera board meeting today.
I don't know where you want to see.
I
think we met her, yeah.
It will emerge. And the regular board meeting on the 25th of August, which the minutes are on. Anyone has any questions? And I also took part in the ANCC Solid Waste Special Committee teleconference.
Councilor Taylor.
Briefly, I had a tour of our museum yesterday, and was shown some of the upcoming displays and projects that they have planned, including down the road honoring the legacy of Mac Lang.
Councilor Margaret.
I had the pleasure of performing as acting mayor at the Comox Valley exhibition. It was a good experience. Unfortunately, the rain held off for the time that we were there.
That was on Friday.
Yes, it was.
That's okay.
Well, and I had also attended the two regional district meetings, the secret meeting and the public meeting. And I was also, I was at the fall fair to sell tickets for chicken poop bingo. So, yeah, so it was kind of fun. We sold 2 full sheets of it. So it's more for fun, but they need a little bit of money for the cost. $500, so there you go, yeah. I think last year they sold 5 sheets for the whole weekend, so I think we kind of upped the ante a little bit. I know you were there too, so it was an interesting. I don't like chickens too much when they're alive, so I have a little chicken phobia here. Exactly.
I don't have much to add other than I was there, but unfortunately I was there on Saturday. I'm glad we had a tent because there was torrential downpours, but yeah, it was good to support that initiative. And I'll throw a plug in for the Rotary Rib Fest that's coming up. That's going to be another good event for folks in the public to come. I think it's the 18th of September.
18, 19, 20.
Yeah, lots of fun for all.
Well, while we're plugging things, Beer Fest for the Courtney Rotary is on October 2nd. And the tickets are online and they're selling quickly, so there's a limited number you can get. So if you want to go, you got to get your tickets for $35.
There you go. Councillor Swift, any problem?
Unfortunately, no. Maybe that's the good news. I attended the regular Filbert board meeting, and they were generally very pleased with how smoothly the festival had gone this year. One of the highlights really was there was a Filbert family reunion going on that weekend, and so some of the Filbert relatives from back east attended the property for the first time and got to go touring through the house, so that was really interesting. The Friday evening concert was a big success, and they're hoping for a similar event next year. And they have a strategic planning session coming up in October to determine their priorities for the next 5 years. So I'll get back to you on that.
Excellent. I'll just report on a couple days of meetings that I had with the climate leadership team, the provincial committee, working towards the new climate action plan. We're getting closer to some results, with some recommendations, I should say. By probably the middle to the end of October, we'll be ready to present that to Cabinet, and then they'll bring it out. So the Premier is going to the talks in Paris in December. 2 days, very full in Vancouver, spent largely on carbon pricing and economic modeling to see how and when we might reach some of the targets that are legislated. You may recall a 33% reduction by 2020 and an 80% reduction by 2050. That was the most of one day. The second day was largely around the natural gas and LNG industries as they are currently being carried on in the northeast of BC. And there's a lot of good information there. There was a presentation on Spectra Energy, which I put on circulation, which is of interest to, I think, anyone looking at that industry. And there's some good information exchange there. So that will carry on into, as I say, October, and more to follow. I note that at UBCM, there's the whole host of resolutions coming up, including our own on NMDC, but there's also one on carbon tax. So there'll be lots of discussion there around that topic. So that's my report. And I believe, unless there's anything else on reports, we have media questions. And I do want to welcome Mary Lee, who's the new reporter from the Echo, formerly at the base. You may have seen Mary.
Major Mary Lee.
So now with the Echo. And I don't know if you guys have any questions at this juncture. You know where to find us otherwise. Any questions from members of the public that are here? No. So that would be it. Before we adjourn, I'll just mention briefly I'll be away the next 2 weeks, so Councillor McKinnon will have the gavel, and he might even wear his kilt.
Let's pass a motion right now.
So, motion to adjourn is in order.